Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Between Friends. So I'm Ashley Jones from Dime, and I am hosting today with my friend Deborah Jones. And I'm so excited that Eileen has allowed us to hijack Facebook Live here. We're excited to share some amazing information with you. So we've got some fun information today that is not normally maybe considered fun. So we are talking today stabilizer myths. So, and really if those myths are actually fact or fiction. So Deborah's joining me. She's our stabilizer guru here at Dime. And so we're going to go over some of these myths, right, Deborah, and let everybody know if they truly are fact or fiction. I'm pretty excited about this.
Well, sometimes we get taught how to, certain things by people, and sometimes things change. New stabilizers come on the market, or just different ways of approaching it. But Ashley, there's no real hard and fast rules sometimes where it is concerned, because you just can't argue with the results.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of what seems to be very confusing for everyone is that there isn't a black and white, that there are choices, and we have a lot of choices to get our best stitch out. And that's why I really love sharing this topic and always, Deborah, learning from you, because I feel like that this is one of the absolute main ingredients to making sure that you have a beautiful stitch out. So it's definitely important. But because it is kind of a confusing topic, I love trying to clarify for everyone out there so that they continue to have fun and success with their embroidery. So it's one of my favorite topics, even though it's more of the technical rather than the fun stuff that we all enjoy to do. Wouldn't you say?
Well, but Ashley, I might point out that some of us think the technical side is the most fun. So
I am a technical nerd, Deborah, so I love the why. I like to know why it works because that makes me remember. I know that some people just like to know what works and they want to go with it, but I definitely like to know the why. So I'm excited to see everything that we have today, and I think everybody's going to enjoy it as well. So it looks like we have a ton of people joining. So Deborah, as usual, they are from all over. I see California, Kansas. I see a chilly Naples, which is not normally that chilly, but Virginia, Southern California, Louisiana, Northern Norway, South Carolina, Minnesota. I'm sure they're chilly up there as well. And so we're excited. We've even got Judy Warren from Hawaii. I'm sure that it's beautiful there. So we're glad everybody's joining us. And speaking of all of our fans, followers, viewers out there, Deborah, you know that we have an amazing free design that we give away every week. So I'd love to start by sharing some of those projects that we've seen our viewers posting on the Facebook and Instagram. So what do you think?
I'd love to see them, Ashley.
All right, so let's start with that, and then we're going to get into the meat of everything. So each week, if you are not familiar, each week Dime is giving away a new design for the entire year of 2022. We call it our On the House design, and we would love it if you would take this free design, stitch it, make it a project, or just stitch it and decide what to use it for later, and then share with us on social media using the hashtag On the House or either Dime Sew Along. That'll help us find your projects. But Deborah, can you believe it? We're already 6 weeks into January. Is that even feasible?
It's crazy. Well, 6 weeks into January does make it February, right?
6 weeks into 2022. Yes, you are correct. I'm glad that January is not 6 weeks long. But we are into our 6 weeks, so I will share the previous 5 designs that we've done just to kind of give you guys a little bit of some inspiration. If you haven't downloaded these, go over to DZGNS to download them. So week 1, Deborah, was that cute little skating bird, and that had a specialty technique, right? What he was skating, and then there's Mylar back there, right?
That's right.
And then we had our cute little winter tree, which was, if I remember correctly, 60 weight thread, right?
Yes.
So we love sharing a variety of techniques with everyone. And then we had our cute little yarn basket for all of those yarn lovers. And that had that beautiful textured fill to create that basket weave. And then week 4 was a project and the design. So this happy heart, which was one of my favorites. And Eileen came up with this cute little bowl cozy to hold your warm bowl of soup, which I thought was adorable. And then we had our color wheel, our heart color wheel for week 5. So far, those are all of the designs that we have out there for you guys to download and stitch a project. And so we've combed social media to find some of your projects that you've shared with us. So I want to share those with you guys. And so everybody can see. So Deborah, this was Cheryl McCombs. And she did her bowl cozy, which I think was adorable. It looks like she matched her fabric to the outside of the bowl with her applique and almost fussy cut. That was pretty cute, right?
Absolutely beautiful.
Love that. So such a great job. And then Chris Yost, she made her bowl cozy. She did write in her comments that she did not stitch the happy heart because her fabric was so bold that she thought it would get lost in the print. So she just made the bowl cozy, which I think is still perfect. I love that fabric. Oh, Deborah, look at this. Is that not adorable? So Shirley Burling, yes, she turned it into a cute little Easter basket.
I love it.
So adorable. She used that cute little Easter egg print, added a handle, and that adorable little bunny button there. So such creative people out there. I love seeing what everybody's doing. And then Candy Bray, she's a regular. We see Candy, we appreciate her support frequently. She looks like she chose a different quilting pattern from behind. I love that she made it her own. It looks like she had some color changes in her happy heart. So adorable. Great job. And Candy's catching up on all of her designs. So, and Deborah, she made a comment that she used King Star Metallic in her yarn balls and also in the white of the color wheel, the heart color wheel. So,
nice.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Beautiful. I love both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And we love our King Star Metallic here. It stitches so well. And then we have Elaine Kaplan, and she took her skating bird and made it a little bit larger for her mug rug. And I love how she did that whimsical shape there behind the bird. It almost looks like that, you know, the spot in the window, Deborah. It reminds me of when you rub off of the... the frost off the window. It looks like she's looking through at that bird skating. So I just love that. Super cute.
Adorable. And it looks like a little matching mug rug, right? Or
yeah, so she made the coaster, and then the mug rug is the one behind. So she did the matching mug rug, made it a little bit larger from the coaster. So yeah, a wonderful combination. So so then we have Renaud Paulson. Hopefully I'm not murdering that name. And she's been catching up on her projects too. So she's done her skating bird, cute little winter tree on this zipper pouch, which is adorable. She also stitched her bowl, and it looks to me like she used a variegated thread for her quilting, Deborah. I just love that.
It does. Yes.
Yeah. Great use of that variegated thread. And then she also finished her yarn basket on another little zipper pouch there. I love her her shades of teal there are gorgeous.
Very nice.
And then we have Jennifer Alexander. She used a beautiful print for her bowl cozy, stitched her her cute little happy heart design and her quilting there. I love her contrasting colors so you can really see that quilting. Quilting is part of my favorite part of the design, so it makes it really nice. And her bowl fits perfectly. Look at that. I love that.
It sure does. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for sharing your designs and what you're stitching. So make sure that you download those on the house designs and get stitching, right, Deborah? I mean, they can turn them into anything, right?
Oh, and these are premium designs, Ashley. You know, they stitch great and they're just really a cut above, I think. And and I think that today's is going to be no exception.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that each one has like a different technique that we're learning, like with the 60 weight thread, using the Mylar. It's really a free way to get some embroidery education from your design. So I love that. So, okay. So today, Deborah, we're talking stabilizer myths, fact or fiction. I'm excited about this because we're going to make this fun. So everyone, we're going to offer a myth, or what might be a myth. It might not be. And then we'd love for you guys to tell us in the chat if you think it is fact or fiction. So make sure you're telling us over in the chat. And along the way, if you have stabilizer questions, make sure you're asking them. It's a great place to get those questions answered. So let's start with that first possible myth. So the first I want to start with is all brands of stabilizer are the same. So I have heard this before where you can just buy any brand. It doesn't matter as long as you've got your stabilizer. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Fact or fiction? Are all those stabilizer brands the same out there? So tell us. We've got some people answering. So we've got some fiction popping up, Deborah. So I'm going to flip to the next side and let's hear what Deborah has to say. I hear it's a lot of fiction, Deborah, a lot of fiction. So tell us the truth.
Well, we've got some pretty savvy viewers out there because they know this is fiction, and good for them because, I know there's some embroiderers who do get fooled by some of the lesser quality, and you can see the difference visually even. If you look at the image on, I hope it's on the left, it's on my left, I'm not sure. And that is a dry laid, what we call a dry laid product. And in the early days, they were pretty much all like this. And you see what poor coverage, Ashley, and also that poor coverage led to a lot of stretch. And so the wet laid product shown on the other side has such uniform coverage. It's wonderful. And so that's the reason that there is such a huge difference in performance between these two types of stabilizers. And of course, in this image, Ashley, we see two completely different brands of a no-show mesh. And you see they have a completely different embossing on that nylon. So that shows you right there, they're not the same. Okay, we know they're not the same. And even some people try to promote their stabilizers of this type by saying, oh, you got to have this type pattern. It helps with the stability. Well, the truth is, there are different weights and different qualities of even a no-show mesh, and you want to be sure you're getting a good one because this is one category, Ashley, where there's been a lot more import product recently. So not that all imports are inferior. I don't mean to say that, but they can be. And if you're not getting your stabilizers from a reliable, trusted source, you could be seeing the results in your poor results on your stitching, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that, that I definitely agree. So things can come from all over, but I love the explanation. And I've never I use our exquisite stabilizer solely, but I've never even known about that difference in that pattern to be able to signify the difference. So that's great information. And I think all of our users out there, they're smart, Deborah. So I'm pretty sure every one of them got that fiction for that particular one. So here's the next one. And I love, this is one of my favorite because this is something that has to do with change over time. So tell us what you guys think in the chat. Fact or fiction? So I need at least 2 layers of my stabilizer, Deborah, and I should offset them if I'm using those 2 layers. So what's everybody saying out there? Let's see what they're typing in for this one. So let us know what you think, fact or fiction for this example. So it's starting to pop up. So we're saying fiction. And so Deborah, tell us what you have to say about this particular subject. So 2 layers and offset.
Well, there's a general rule, Ashley, that we would use 1 layer. That's why we make stabilizers in light, medium, and heavy weights. So today, we really can use the proper weight in a single layer. You know, we were taught, Ashley, the reason a lot of people double up and actually can't economize on their stabilizer spending because they're doubling up all the time. And that's because we were taught to do that. And, you know, I think we were taught to do that from the early days when all the stabilizers were dry laid, or most of them, so that when you put them at those opposing angles, you're minimizing the stretch and and improving the coverage, because we saw in that earlier image how spotty the coverage can be, right?
Right, absolutely. And this next example that you've got here, this is one layer of no-show and it's stitched out beautifully, right?
Yes, and you know, that is actually a nylon product. You know, some people call it polymesh erroneously. In the early days, there were some polyester versions, but this is nylon. It has virtually no stretch, and so it will support 12 or 15,000 stitches in a small area with great detail like you see there. So, and you know, that registration, we call it, where the outlines track properly onto the fills, that is very tight and clean with just that single layer. And yet when you pick it up in your hand, Ashley, it's so wispy. It feels like it's lighter than air. It's like nothing, but it's so supportive.
I agree, and I definitely love that. So we already have some questions popping up, and one of them, I'm trying to get back to it, but it was basically which side of the no-show do they use? So I'm thinking that, Deborah, if you want to answer that, but I'm wondering if she's thinking of the fusible one.
Yeah, you're right, Ashley. That's probably what she's thinking of, because there's only one category that has a right and wrong side, and that would be the fusible, which of course you want to put the fusible side toward your garment and press it to the garment. You can reheat it later and so you can cut it around the design, but there isn't a right or wrong side for the non-fusible variety.
And then Davina is saying, does the stabilizer shrink when you iron your project? So I'm wondering if she's also referring to the no-show.
Probably, and certainly, you know, if you put too much heat on a no-show, it is a nylon. It's going to have a certain amount of shrinkage, and there's other heat-sensitive stabilizers, not just no-show. So you always want to be cautious when applying heat, or even in a too hot dryer, right, Ashley?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you refer to it as heat sensitive, Deborah, because I think that that's a really good point to make, is that some things are heat sensitive where they either slightly shrink or retract when heat is applied. So, yeah.
But I can assure you that professional embroiderers, commercial embroiderers use the no-show regularly and with no issues. So don't worry about using it. Just don't put a hot iron directly on it. That would be something not to do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then Laura, just a side note there, she's using our on the house designs to make a quilt for her kids. I think that's a great use of those designs. I love that. And then Candy's asking a question that I think we're going to address a little bit later whenever we talk about. So this says, when should you use wash away that is also a tear away? So do you want to talk about that now, Deborah, or do we want to wait?
Let's go ahead and answer,
okay, go ahead.
Candy, because there's two things to point out here. One is, I would say, when would you use a tear away that's also a wash away? I'm going to flip it around. And the reason is, Candy, that we want to use that on linens, like bed linens, bath linens, and table linens, because people just don't like to see that stabilizer. So we use it when the fabric is sturdy enough or supportive enough to support that embroidery after there is no stabilizer remaining. Okay, so typically, you know, a bed sheet, a placemat, a napkin, a bath towel can do that, as long as we don't put too many stitches into it. So that's a great question. Uh, and let's see, Ashley, this says,
And
what's the difference? What was that?
sorry. Yep, let me go back. So, what's the difference between the no-show cutaway and the regular cutaway?
Well, obviously the no-show is almost translucent. That's the reason it has its name. So you would use that particularly on light-colored garments like a white knit shirt. It's not going to give you that shadow behind the embroidery, and it's also going to be very comfortable against your skin.
Yeah, I love that. That lightness of it definitely makes it nice and wearable. So, and then this is actually a really great question. And so Mary says she has some older stabilizers. So how does she tell if it's wet laid, Deborah?
Well, you know what? You could do what we did sort of in that image. You could put it, if you don't have a light table, which most of us don't, take it up to a window, and just take a piece of it and lay it up against the window where you get good light. Does it look like it has spotty coverage? If it does, you could still use it, but you probably would want to double up on it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So let's go on to our next possible myth. So sometimes you don't even need stabilizer, Deborah. So first of all, I can hardly even imagine a time that we didn't need stabilizer. In fact, I can only think of one instance, and that's quilting with your embroidery machine, that we don't use stabilizer. But can you guys think of other instances that you didn't use stabilizer? And so yes, the fiction is popping in. So Deborah's got some awesome explanations for this. So this is definitely a learning option for me. So needing stabilizer or not needing a stabilizer. So Deborah, tell us about these images here.
Well, here's some images where you might not think you needed a stabilizer, but in fact, you probably would use one. Now, there are an occasional, maybe a canvas bag or something like that where you don't really truly need stabilizer. But for instance, on towels, even though they seem nice and heavy, especially if you've got a good quality one, you definitely need stabilizer. Also with that placemat, the napkin, the bag, and especially that waterproof item. Okay, you've got this nice rain jacket and it's waterproof. Well, what makes it waterproof is a rubberized or not necessarily it's rubber, but a coating on the back that makes it waterproof. And when that moves along your machine bed, it wants to stick and it can't slide freely like a regular fabric. So it's and your pantograph is forcing it to move, but it's not making its best stitch formation. So that's one reason that we would use it. Also to prevent debris in your hook assembly area. Ashley, think about leather. Okay. Yeah. So leather is a great example because, well, for one thing, it does need a stabilizer. It stretches. Think about your own hide. But the other thing is that when you're piercing it, that natural material can get in your hook assembly area. So if you've got a stabilizer under there, it helps prevent that debris from getting into your hook assembly.
Oh, I love that. I've never even thought that. And such a good point about the Gore-Tex kind of, not sliding smooth across your the bed of your machine. It's something that we don't even think about. We really just think, put it in there and get stitching and hopefully everything works out great. But those are really good points. Well, what about this, Deborah? Stitching on hats.
Well, just about any time a professional embroiderer does a hat, they're using cap backing, and that's the reason cap backing is a big category in stabilizers for professionals. And you can see a piece of it mounted there on that hat frame jig before it goes into the machine. And whether you do your hats on a 10 needle or 6 needle, or if you do it in a hat clip, it's a good idea to add a layer of stabilizer. And again, the debris from cap, if you've got buckram backing on a cap, Ashley, that debris is real. Yes. So it's good to put that layer in there to kind of keep your hook assembly clean, and even sliding a piece under that sticky hoop with the peel and stick on it if you've got a heavier design, might be a good idea. Do you think, Ashley?
I do. I definitely do. I like that because, I've heard you say before, we want to, match the weight of our, fabric, and our stabilizer needs to be stable enough to support those stitches. So you're matching the weight to make sure that everything is balanced nicely. So I love that tip. So that 2 layers, like you said, you don't have to hoop the 2 layers, but I love your explanation of if you see something not stitching well, it's easy to slide an extra piece underneath the hoop to give you that extra stability. I love that. So we have more questions here, Deborah. So let's see what we've got. So Lynette says, when using stabilizer, I clicked it away. When using stabilizer, is it best to use 1 sheet or 2 sheets of stabilizer? So that's what we had just talked about, Lynette, about really 1 sheet of the right stabilizer is generally what you need. But then if you see that you're getting some sort of puckering or issue as it's stitching, and we're all watching our machines, right, Deborah, stitch, then you can easily slide that stabilizer underneath. So, and then we've got, can you use wash away, tear away on towels?
Well,
Jane
sure.
was asking that.
That's one of the best places to use it, and I love it because and on bed sheets and napkins, because it's going to be invisible pretty much as soon as it's removed, because it tears very cleanly. But after it's washed, it's all gone, and that fabric certainly can support the
stitches for sure. Now here's one that I don't even know what to say about this one, Deborah, but so Heidi's asking, how long is stabilizer good for?
Well, I can't think of a stabilizer today that has a shelf life. In the old days, we had a water activated adhesive stabilizer that had about a 6-month shelf life, but that's not true anymore. We don't really have stabilizers like for instance, our peel and stick that we're going to be talking about today, if it's stored properly, should last indefinitely.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. That means I can buy what I need when it's on sale, right, Deborah?
Right. And when I say stored properly, I mean in a room where you would be comfortable. It shouldn't get too hot, too cold, or a room where your machine would be comfortable is another example.
So you're saying don't buy it when it's on special and fill it up in a warehouse just to save $1 or $2. Is that what you're saying?
Hey, it's okay as long as you don't have to put it in the garage, where it could get too hot or too cold.
Yeah, for sure. So, and Carolyn says, does cork need stabilizer? And if I had to guess, I bet there's a little bit of stretch to that cork. So what do you say, Deborah?
Well, yes, and that's a fabric or a material where, you certainly could modify your design to be suitable for that if you didn't want to use a permanent stabilizer.
Oh, nice. I love that explanation. So what about this one? This is a really good one. Deborah, can you over stabilize something?
Oh, absolutely. I see. When the moisture wicking shirts first came out, Ashley, I was at an airport and I saw a guy with a sleeve embroidery on his moisture wicking. I'm not shy. I asked him if I could look at the stabilizer, and there were literally 3 layers of a heavy cutaway, and it was nice and soft, but oh my goodness, it was like a baby blanket under there, and it's certain, and we don't, and that's a lightweight fabric, so we don't want our stabilizer to, in my opinion, really, if when possible, be a lot heavier than the fabric itself.
Right. Yeah, matching that, kind of what we were talking about, kind of matching that weight so that, your knits still drape, right, Deborah? And then, your canvas can tolerate a thicker stabilizer, if you need it, which you don't, really. So what do you say we go to our next possible myth? So
you bet.
I love this one. Only fabric plays a role in the stabilizer selection, not the design. I feel like we've kind of covered this a little bit. What do you guys think over there in the chat? Do you think this is fact or fiction? Do you think your design plays a role? Or do you think that it's really just the fabric that we need to worry about when we're choosing our stabilizer? So tell us that over in the chat. So Deborah, tell us about these pictures. People are already piping in. They're fiction. These guys are great, Deborah.
They
I
know
mean,
what they're. We've got some savvy viewers. They
we
know
do,
what
we
they're
do.
doing. And you see these two designs, Ashley, that have some outlining. So certainly the design plays a part here, because if that heart had no outline, it would to our eye look fine, but
Right.
it is actually the fabric is being pulled inward in the direction of the stitching, which is horizontal. So the stitching's going left to right, left to right. It's pulling that fabric in left to right. This is not the same thing as puckering. It's just a fact that is part of the phenomenon of needle and thread into fabric. So yes, we need to choose a different stabilizer in both of these instances based on the design, whereas we could have possibly used that stabilizer on that fabric if the design didn't have outlining. It's interesting. Think about the Nike swoosh. You could probably put that on almost anything with most stabilizers, right?
Right. Yeah. So Deborah, what if I really, really wanted to use a design, but it's on a lighter fabric? Do you have any tips? What could we do?
Sure. Let's head over to the camera and I'll show you an example. Oops, I'm tethered. Okay. So here we go. Now, this is an example of a design that's fairly heavy. It's got a lot of outlining, and it was stitched on this t-shirt with a single layer of the no-show mesh. And as you can see, the result is fine. But I wanted to put that design on this lightweight windbreaker type jacket, and it's very, very thin nylon or polyester, and it is not going to, this fabric is not well suited to a cutaway. It's going to pull in with a cutaway. So I just omitted the fill stitch areas in this design. I think it's just as striking. Now, I could have done a fill here, but this is something anyone, even if you don't use software, can do this technique. Just skip over the fill stitched areas. So this is just an example where we can actually modify our design to be suited for the fabric it's going on, Ashley.
Oh, I love that. So many times I think that we love, love, love a design and we want to stitch it no matter what anybody says. And so having a solution to be able to stitch it on the item that we really want, I love that. So that was a great one. And then we have a couple of comments here. Another really good one about storing. So Heidi just says, Deborah, so she uses an over-the-door rack behind her door, and then it is kept, it is safe to keep soluble in a Ziploc bag. So your water soluble stabilizer in a Ziploc. What's your recommendation for that?
Sure, that's a great way to store it. And in fact, I have some in my studio in a Ziploc. I have some in some other containers. Now, I do think it should be in something to help keep it dry. But, because what happens is, and where I live, it may be different in humid areas, it might get sticky, but where I live, it gets brittle, Ashley, and then it doesn't really do its job. Once that needle strikes it, it breaks. So it's not giving you it's not serving the purpose.
Yeah, that's a good point. I love that. So, and I agree. We live in the humidity, and so I do keep mine in a bag or either rolled up. And we have some of our containers that we usually keep them in, things like that. So it just keeps it nice and soft for sure. So, okay, so let's do our next our stabilizer myth or possible myth here. So, Deborah, we've been talking about cutaway stabilizer a bit, and this is a question that I've gotten in the past. So, if cutaway stabilizer is so strong, then why don't we just use it for everything? That would make our lives easier, wouldn't it? So what do you guys think? So should we use our cutaway stabilizer for everything? Is that fact or fiction? So tell us over in the chat. So Deborah, what have you got to say about using cutaway for everything? So I know these images will tell a story here.
You bet. Well, I mean, obviously, Ashley, we're not going to use it on certain things like shears and meshes and you could say the opposite too, Ashley. You could say, hey, if tearaway is so easy, I wish I could use it on everything. So the truth is that we shouldn't use a single stabilizer on everything. But, we do have so many wonderful stabilizers available to us. There's no reason to use a cutaway where it's inappropriate. And I'm going to tell you my rule of thumb, and some of you may think this is a little nutty, but generally speaking, cutaways are not great on woven materials. In fact, woven materials make a great cutaway. and so, like when we do moisture wicking fabrics, I like to use a woven cutaway. I like our stretchy knit stabilizer, which is in fact a woven. But if that nylon jacket that I just showed you, I used a tearaway on, because if I used a cutaway, it's going to pull inward, because the cutaway is simply just a softer stabilizer than a firm tearaway. A firm tearaway holds those stitches in place properly. That's when you get nice clean edges on the columns of your satin stitches when you use a tearaway. That's why sometimes I'll do both, just like many of you do. I'll hoop in a cutaway, and I might slide a tearaway underneath to get that crispness of the tearaway. So there are many different recipes, let's call them, for our stabilizers. But unfortunately, on a woven or on a sheer, we wouldn't use a cutaway. I wouldn't use a cutaway.
Yeah, I love that. I love that explanation. And you would think that that's, like you're saying, you would think, cutaway would be good no matter what the fabric is, which I do agree. It's probably good in a lot of cases. But in the cases of the examples we showed, you don't want to see that big shape of your cutaway behind your fabric. So it's more of that, pleasing to the eye. We want it to look attractive kind of thing. But speaking of cutaway stabilizers, or like you said, some stabilizers are like a fabric, Deborah. What about the stabilizer that you used for your chunky knit sweater there? So this is a really cool tip, guys. So listen up.
Okay, so you see my bulky knit sweater. It is really a very open knit. I don't know if you can tell, but see, it's kind of got this cable knit, right? And on this sweater, I recommend that you use a colored organza, polyester organza. In fact, I'll show you. You see here on the back of my my knit, I use this because had I used a white or a black traditional non-woven stabilizer, or even a no-show, you could possibly see it through this this open knit. So this is an old-time, long-held tradition among manual monogram embroidery operators to use an organza. Now, this is just a pale green, and I like to go to the fabric store and just get, a quarter yard of different colors. I think if whatever their least they'll cut.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great explanation. I mean, if you've got something that's cranberry colored that you didn't want that bold white to show through, or, like you said, the greens, things like that we don't have those stabilizer colors, I think that's a great option. That's awesome. We have some other questions popping up too that we can talk about before we go on to our next myth. And so so Roseanne says, what type of container do you use to store stabilizers other than Ziplocs for larger rolls specifically? So I know what I do, Deborah, but do you have any recommendations for those really long rolls?
I don't have anything that is a wide roll, that would be in that category. What do you do, Ashley?
Yeah, so I feel like, well, first of all, I feel like most of the ones that need that protection are in our smaller rolls, because there are toppers, right? So
Right.
Like our water soluble toppers, things like that, those don't usually come in our really long rolls because we don't use but just a small piece of them. So, but I do, if I have a long roll that I don't have a bag that it'll fit in, Deborah, I will wrap it in just like saran wrap, like a plastic wrap, and then just tuck it in the ends. I feel like it just kind of keeps, a little bit of the humidity from around here off of it. But I really don't worry about that unless it's a like a water soluble, something that's water activated. Really is kind of more my concern with leaving it open air. So it's my
Right. And
thought. I don't know if it's right
right.
or wrong, but
And I agree with you, Ashley. I even think that what you're doing is just like what you're doing when you put food in the refrigerator,
yeah, right, right, absolutely. I think that's a good point. So, and Anne says she got your embroidery wheel so helpful. I love that. That is definitely one of my most helpful tools. So I love that. And so then we also have here, is that Miko? Miko says, so is tearaway more versatile? So I think I know the answer to that one, Deborah, but what's your response?
Well, I would say yes. And the reason is that there's two types of tearaway. Now, we can't go into all of this in
Right.
this one short session, but I will tell you there's a firm tearaway, which is nice and crisp. And there's a soft tearaway, which is one of my favorites because, like, if I'm doing a name on a sweatshirt, I love a soft tearaway because technically, even though that is a knit and you would use a cutaway on a knit, but a soft tearaway is kind of a cheater stabilizer because it is a hybrid between a cutaway and a tearaway, and it doesn't it doesn't perforate so rapidly. So you could use a soft tearaway in place of a cutaway in many instances, and for that reason, I love it.
Love it. Yeah, I definitely agree. Tearaway, and not many people realize the difference even in the tearaways, but there's just so many options. So
Right.
Marianne says she wraps her stabilizer in a large plastic bag that comes from the grocery store. I think that's a great tip for sure. And then also we've got here, Shirley says large rolls can be stored in wrapping paper containers. So
Oh,
smart. Yeah, some smart people out there. I love all
yeah,
those tips, Deborah.
yes, love that.
So my next myth, I have to say, is one of my favorite to share because I think it is something that a lot of people don't realize. So the next question we want to ask to see if it's true or not, Deborah, is if my design is puckering. Puckering is the nemesis of the embroiderer, right? So we
Yeah.
don't want any puckers. We try so hard to prevent them. So you guys tell me, fact or fiction? If my design is puckering, I have chosen the incorrect stabilizer. Do you guys think that that's fact or fiction? So this is one of my favorite questions that I get. So people are popping up. We're getting some different answers here. So I'm going to go ahead and go forward and share this slide. So Deborah, if I have puckering, could it be something other than my stabilizer?
Oh, well, Ashley, the answer to this as well as I do, but I'll speak to it for us. There's three factors. Of course, your design can be too heavy for the intended fabric. The stabilizer could indeed be incorrect, or the needle could be incorrect. And so you can see on this purple windbreaker that the design, it's actually a raincoat, the design puckered tremendously because it was embroidered with a ballpoint needle. The same design on the black raincoat didn't pucker because it was embroidered with a sharp point needle. So especially on these synthetic, densely woven materials, we want to use a sharp point needle. I know you're thinking all needles are sharp, but I know, Ashley, that
Yeah.
there's a difference between a ballpoint embroidery needle and a sharp point, just like sewing
Yeah.
needles. So we need to be using the sharps on wovens generally, but especially on those tightly woven synthetics.
Right, absolutely. So Roseanne said she knew needles would be the factor. And
That is right.
that is true. I love sharing that because so often, Deborah, I think that everyone out there, we neglect changing our needle and we neglect choosing the proper needle for our fabric. We just think, oh, universal, it's great for everything. And so that's one of my favorite tips to share because I think that I just love people to understand the importance of your needle. It's an inexpensive part of our hobby. And so it's really important to choose the right one to get the right stitch out. So when you've got that recipe down pat, then you're going to have that best success for sure. And that one, I have to say, Deborah, we got a mixed bag of answers. We got a little bit of both. And so I love that. So that means that we taught somebody something today that would help them hopefully with their puckers. Perkers, I know the least thing that we want to deal with. It's not fun. It's not pretty. We want our designs to look great, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so I have just a couple of more possible myths left. So the next one, you guys tell me what you think. I bet they know the answer to this one too, Deborah. So there's only one correct stabilizer for your fabric type. So you've selected your fabric, and once you've decided what you're stitching on, there is only one stabilizer that will work for that particular item. Is that fact or is that fiction, guys? So tell us over in the chat. So they're already starting to pipe up, Deborah. So I'm going to go forward here, and we can talk about this item here. So this is the perfect explanation of that. And we talked about it with our needles already.
Right. And it does include, someone had said we need a needle wheel. Well, the needles are in the second window. The top window has usually a couple of stabilizer types that can be used with the fabric, because it's just a wheel. You just dial it to the fabric that you're wanting to embroider, and then you look in that top window, and it's going to show you my recommended stabilizer types. And then in the next window is my recommended needle point types and blade sizes. And then and again, there's more than one. And then in the bottom window is any other tips that I recommend about working with that particular fabric. So it's two-sided. There's over 25 different fabric types on there. So it is a good reference, I would say.
Absolutely. And Mary's saying we need a needle wheel like we need this, like the stabilizer wheel. And I definitely agree with that, Mary. But the nice thing about the Embroiderer's Compass is, like Deborah said, it does have needle recommendation for your embroidery project. So it's an all-in-one tool, which makes it even better because it's less I have to keep up with, right? So great explanation. I love that. So, and here's another one, Deborah. So floating stabilizer is easier than hooping, and it's just as effective as if you hoop the stabilizer. So what do you guys think over there? Fact or fiction on floating your stabilizer? Now I'm referring to floating the stabilizer completely, not putting any in the hoop. So what do you guys think? So they're piping up, Deborah. So tell us about this image here.
Yeah, that image is really just that's what Ashley's talking about when she says floating. When you don't put any stabilizer in the hoop, you're just sliding it under the hoop. Generally not a great idea. There are times though when we do slide a piece under. In this picture, you can see a piece of hooped stabilizer and a piece that has been slid under the hoop. So that is what I do a lot of times, Ashley. I will hoop a piece of, let's say, cutaway in for a knit, and I'll slide a piece of crisp tearaway underneath the hoop in order to give that great definition to my satin stitch columns like that we were talking about.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely, this is what, we were talking about, earlier, like you said, if you see something happening, because we all love to watch our embroidery in progress. So that's the nice thing about floating. But I definitely agree, Deborah. I always feel like I get the best results if I have stabilizer hooped with my item. And then if I need to add that extra stability, slipping that underneath, I think is really important. So here is a question from Mary. She said, how can she tell if the needle is a sharp point if you have mature eyes and can't read the needle? So that was a hard one, Deborah. I'm not sure.
That's a great question. And here's what I do, because this is what a lot of what we did in commercial shops. Okay, so here's what we do. We get those needles out of the pack, and a lot of times they're in a little package where they're in like little soldiers in a row when we first open it, right? Take a black Sharpie, put a stripe just across the top of the needle where you can still see it after it's inserted in the machine. On your ballpoints, then use a red Sharpie. Use a black one on the sharps, and on the ballpoints use a red, whatever, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. But as long as you can then see it after it's inserted in the machine, you'll know. Now, Ashley, you have a great tip I'm going to share on your behalf with the audience that I love. And that is, when Ashley finishes a project, she takes the needle out of the machine.
Yeah.
And that's a reminder to make sure she has the right needle in the next time she does her next project. I love that. Fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. Deborah, I can't remember. And like, Mary said, I can't read those. I mean, everything is so tiny. And since it's just etched in there. So just to prevent any issues, then yes, I just remove it. And then the next day when I'm ready to embroider, I make sure I'm choosing the right needle for the project. So yeah, that's just it's kind of lazy if you think about it, but hey, it's how it works for me for sure. So, okay, so let's do our
I think it's a fantastic
thank you
habit. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So let's do our last fact or fiction there. And this is one that I also love sharing. So a sticky stabilizer will gum up my needle and my machine. So what do you guys think? Fact or fiction? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like using adhesive stabilizers. So tell us what you guys think over there in the chat. So Deborah, what's your take on the adhesive stabilizers and your machine together?
Well, I can tell you, I certainly have seen tackiness on my needles at times. I've never had any gum up a machine, and the real key is storage. Because if you're using a high quality product like Peel and Stick or our adhesives, Sew and Wash, these are very proven products. They are going to perform correctly and not gum up your machine, and yet have good tack as long as they've been stored correctly, which means not too hot. That's the main thing that makes them gummy. Don't let your self-adhesive stabilizers get too warm, because that's when they get gummy. That's when they can create an issue in your machine. But generally speaking, they perform, if it's a high quality one, they perform well.
And somebody said earlier, Deborah, it's way far back. The comments are like going like pretty quickly, but somebody said, what's too hot? And I think you used the term, I don't know if it was before we started, but you said something about, you being comfortable in the room. So is that the right answer to what's too hot?
I like that answer, because if I'm uncomfortable, it's going to be, because I'm from Texas. So if I'm uncomfortable, if I'm too hot, then I think it's probably above a temperature where I should be storing my self-adhesive stabilizers.
For sure.
I wish I could give you a degree type number, but I think that any overly warm environment for a period of time is what would create the problem.
Yeah, for sure. I think that lots of things happen whenever it's too hot. So I think that's a good point about the heat level there. And so we have a question here, and I'm not 100% sure. Linda says, which stabilizer would be best for an embroidered label, letters, and a small design? So in my mind, Linda's maybe making a label for like a quilt or something, and so depending on what fabric she's putting it on, would be what stabilizer we choose, right, Deborah?
Yeah, but if it's a quilt label, generally that's going to be a woven. And so generally, it doesn't matter. It could be ribbon, whatever the label is. If it's a woven fabric, then I would choose initially a medium tearaway, because and I know that people probably wonder, what is what is a crisp tearaway? You know, a crisp tearaway can be light, medium, or heavy. So choose the one that's best suited for your task. She said small lettering.
She
So
did.
if it's too delicate of a lettering, she might choose a light, crisp tearaway, right, Ashley?
Right, absolutely, because then it's not so bulky, you know, in those tiny little letters. So great point. So, okay, so that was all of our myth questions, Deborah. I think that that was pretty good. We had everybody participating, and I think we've got some smart embroiderers out there. So we didn't stump them
Definitely.
on very many. So I'm gonna have to try harder next time. So, but I love that they are familiar with their stabilizer, though, because then that tells us that they're getting the most out of their embroidery as well. So, but since we left off on adhesive stabilizer, I want to share Dime's sticky hoop with everyone. And I wanted to show you the difference. So we have our sticky hoop, which is for use with adhesive stabilizer. So these are Dime's two hoops that we have here. We have the Snap Hoop Monster. That one has a magnetic top frame that's going to magnetize to the base and hold your fabric between the two. And the sticky hoop frame actually does not have a top at all. It's just this metal base. Now, a lot of people will ask us if we can just use the base of our Snap Hoop Monster, because if I remove this from the top, they don't look very different. But I can assure you that there is a difference. So on the back, and I'm going to actually put my magnet back so we know which one we're looking at here. So for our Snap Hoop Monster, we have that top frame that holds our fabric into place. And these really soft strips are applied to the back of our hoop. This is going to protect the bed of your embroidery machine. Now, we pay a lot of money for our embroidery machines, so we want to keep them looking nice. So that's why we have those strips. So they'll glide across the machine bed. Now, with the sticky hoop, it doesn't have any suede strips because we're going to put our adhesive stabilizer directly to the back of this hoop. If you were to do that on your snap hoop, it damages these suede strips, and we don't want to damage those. Now, your sticky hoop, it does come in a package that looks like this. So when you order a sticky hoop from Dime, and it actually comes in the back with pre-cut stabilizer and some little rulers there. So let me show you what those look like. So when you purchase an adhesive or a sticky hoop from Dime, it comes with pre-cut peel and stick stabilizer. That is Dime's exquisite stabilizer that is adhesive, but it is also a tearaway. So once you're done using it, it would rip away from your project. It also comes with your rulers, and what you're going to do with these is on the front side of your hoop, you're going to apply them around your hoop, and there are instructions with the hoop to show you exactly how to do that. So you'll place those all around. That's just going to help you with alignment. So a lot of people will say, can I get the rulers in inches? But the inch doesn't matter versus the millimeter or the centimeter in this case, because we're not measuring with our hoops. We have rulers that are much better suited for that. But what we do with those marks are we use them to make sure that we're straight in the hoop. So even though these are centimeters, don't let that bother you too much, because really what you want to do is you want to be able to tell if you're straight in the hoop. So aligning those rulers, it's going to make sure that I know that. Now, to use the sticky hoop, it's super simple. You're actually going to flip your hoop over to the back side. Now, this is recessed. So the clip here, you can see here that I've got a little bit of a lip. So if you hang that off of the edge of your table when you're applying this, it'll actually lay flat. So, and then I actually have my stabilizer here, and I already started one corner because that seems to be the most challenging part of doing this on the camera. So I've got my adhesive stabilizer. Notice I released the release paper completely, and then I'm going to just stick it right to the back of my hoop. So look at that. Now I am ready to hoop. So I've got my stabilizer attached. Now, anything that I stick to this stabilizer is hooped. Now, what do you want to use your sticky hoop for? What types of things do you want to use it for? So here's some examples. Things like this cute little luggage tag here. I can stick that down and embroider on that. I could never use my standard hoop for that. So adhesive stabilizer is important for those types of things. Ribbon. If you have ever watched Eileen, she has embroidered on ribbon in a lot of instances. So in this case here, you can use it to embroider on ribbon. And notice I can use that to get my ribbon straight in the hoop. My adhesive rulers there. Nylon, that's another great use of adhesive stabilizer. And I know, like I said, I know a lot of people don't love to use adhesive stabilizer, but other things that make it necessary, things like this cute little jewelry case, if you wanted to stitch on the top there, you couldn't hoop that. Off the edge embroidery is another good example. If you use a water soluble adhesive stabilizer, you can place the edge and you can actually embroider on the edge of your design. Now, if you had to hoop this completely, you wouldn't be able to embroider all the way to the edge. So adhesive stabilizer helps with that. Now, if I want this is freestanding lace. I would use an adhesive sew and wash. That means it's going to be adhesive, but it's going to completely 100% rinse away when you're all done. So, and that, Deborah, that's actually a great point that, hey, that's something that's coming soon to Dime, right?
Exactly, Ashley. The pre-cut peel and stick is currently what, of course, comes with and will still come with the hoops, but also available will be the pre-cut adhesive sew and wash. So and that just means that it's like the peel and stick, but it can be completely removed, right?
Right, absolutely. And that's important if you need the stabilizer to completely disappear, like off the edge stitching, or in some cases, we don't want to see it on the back of, say, like a scarf or something like that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I love our sticky hoop. So anytime you need adhesive stabilizer, sticky hoop can help you. And we actually make this for a variety of different machines. Like we even have some really large sticky hoops, right, Deborah?
Right. If you want to follow me over to the camera, I'll show you one. So the sticky hoops, this is a really big sticky hoop. We have in all sizes, so this is probably a 9 by 9.5 by 9.5 or so. I'm just guessing at the size, but check it out. This is a tip from Eileen. After she gets her self-adhesive on the back of the hoop, she takes that release paper and puts it right back on top. That's a cool thing to do, especially if you're not going to use it right away, or if something interrupts you, just put that self-adhesive right back on top. Great tip there. And this is one of the bigger sizes. It'd be great for a lot of your bigger projects. And one of those bigger projects that we can certainly have done here at Dime is to do a boot. This is large enough surface to actually spread your boot out on and put an embroidery right here. How cool is that? And of course, we've done many, many things here at Dime. And here's kind of a fun project we did that is a good example of how you might want to consider, Ashley, this footwear. You showed your tennis shoe tongue, I think, or did you?
No, I didn't get there, but
Okay,
that would work too.
We do have just carrying on in footwear, which I love doing footwear. I've done baby shoes, sneakers, boots, and this is a template that's applied to the top of this tennis shoe sneaker, which of course could also be applied. Now, I would probably turn this to the side and stick it down and babysit it, right, Ashley?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And making sure you're placing it in a manner that you can get it, slip it under the needle too. So,
right. And just a little tip, this is kind of a funny thing that happened to us here when we started this Best Foot Forward project. We forgot to check this is the way that the project is supposed to look. It's a cute idea when you put your slippers on to see best foot forward, right? Putting your best foot forward. But we applied it to to the opposite slipper first. We came out with forward best foot. So just
Deborah, you're telling everyone that we make mistakes too. I don't know if that's
oh
good to
yeah,
share.
we certainly do. But these are so easy just to apply. And what a cute gift. You know, Ashley, you could do a whole spa set in this sticky hoop with one hooping. You could do the slippers, you could do the little makeup case, and the spa wrap, right?
Oh, that is so true. That's a good point in those large hoops. And the nice thing too about the adhesive stabilizer, since it's actually applied to the hoop, you can stitch small things in that large hoop, which we don't normally recommend because it creates what we call flagging. So, but with the adhesive applied to the back, you could use a large, several designs, small designs in a large hoop. So I love that, Deborah. Great examples. So we have a few more questions. One of them I have to share here. It's not really a question, more of a comment. So Sharon says, do they get a prize for being so smart? So
Yeah,
Sharon, yes, you're going to get a free design that I'm about to share with you in just a bit. And also, you get all this knowledge too, Sharon. So, but we thank you for being smart. I just love that. Of course you do. And so here we've got a couple of other questions that I just wanted to make sure get answered. So this is I'm new to embroidery, but have some stabilizer that I've picked up. So when you say the old days, Deborah, how old are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about a really long time ago.
Right.
There's no way you picked up those stabilizers recently, but I will caution that you can still get those inferior dry laid stabilizers online through some of these sources. If it looks so inexpensive that it looks like bargain of the century, it's probably an inferior dry laid product. Sorry to say that to you guys, but it's just truth.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, Deborah, too. But yeah, and in reality, when you refer to the old days, you've told me in the past that there weren't even that many stabilizer options back then. So you guys had to get creative.
We used industrial paper towels for tearaway. Of course, many of you watching will remember when we used coffee filters. We used all kinds of wacky things. We used that gummed tape that came out of those dispensers that you pulled the handle on for leather. And I bet many of our viewers don't even know what I'm talking about the tape dispenser that ran it across wet brushes. But yeah, so many different things. And today, we're so fortunate, even though we open our drawer and we see 16 different rolls of white stuff, we don't remember which one's which and why we bought that particular one. But the truth is we're very fortunate to have all the engineered products for our use today. Yes.
I totally agree. I know a lot of people think that, oh, these are a waste. They've done it for years without that. And that is true. They have done it for years without it. But the thing is, as time advances, we make, new products to make things better and easier. So they're there for a reason. So, and then Marianne, we knew we would get this question, right, Deborah? So Marianne says that she's used the sticky hoop and she has a problem removing the stabilizer from the back of the hoop. Any suggestions? And I think both Deborah and I agree that she and I don't always remove it from the back unless it's a lot of buildup. So we just keep applying new adhesive stabilizer. But I will tell you, I have used a rubbing alcohol in the past on, just like a little cotton, round or something. And I just rub a decent amount and kind of just let it do its thing. And then literally I could just roll that. I just push it with my finger and it just kind of rolls up and I can just throw that away. If you use some sort of adhesive type remover that we use for other things, Deborah had a good point about just making sure if it's kind of oily, just, make sure you get it all off because you don't want that to transfer to your project. So, but those are really good questions. And then another question here, Candy Bray said, can you get replacement suede strips? Absolutely. If you check our dzgns.com website, you can can get replacements of those suede strips if you have damaged those in the past before sticky hoop time. So Deborah, I think we had a great a group of ladies today, but I still want to give them the free design. I want to talk to them about that. So what do you say we head over and talk about our special and the free design for today?
You bet, and I'm very excited. I know because I've had a little sneak peek, and I know this
Yeah.
week's design is super special.
Absolutely. So the sticky hoop is our special item for today. So sticky hoop is on our website, dzgns.com. You have to choose the size that you want, and it has to be the size that will work for your machine. So make sure you select the right one. So the prices start at $59.99 based on the size you're selecting, but you do get free shipping with the promo code Hoop Sticky. So make sure you type that in at checkout over there at dzgns.com. So Hoop Sticky is your free shipping code. Okay, so now you're on the house design for this week. I'm excited to share with you this adorable little birdhouse. So isn't that perfect for spring, Deborah? I just love that.
I love it too, and love the colors in that. It's so happy.
Oh, absolutely. And I love the flowers coming up on it. So these on the house designs, guys, they were specifically created with our thread line in mind. So the exquisite threads that match these colors. You can take the card that comes with your design into your local dealer and request these colors of your exquisite thread. But we want to hear from you. We want you guys to stitch this at home. Show us what you made with these designs. So you're actually getting two different sizes of this design this week. So let me show you those two different designs here. And we have a pre-cut version or trim in the hoop. So you're going to get a 4x4 or a 5x7. Notice how the 4x4, the roof line is fill stitches because it's getting kind of tiny. But the 5x7, the roof line is applique, as well as the main part of the birdhouse is applique. So these are, I can't wait to see what you guys make. It's going to be awesome. Now, if you are the type of person that likes to pre-cut your applique pieces, whether it's with a template or by stitching a template or with your digital cutter, we're giving you two different types of design. So we're giving you a design that's ideal for pre-cut fabric, and we're giving you the design that is ideal for trimming in the hoop. So let me show you the difference between these two designs. So now the applique part of the birdhouse is the main difference. So here's our applique part of our birdhouse. Now, if you are stitching a design where you have pre-cut, let me get through my words here on my slow redraw. If you have pre-cut your piece, when you place that down, our design has a zigzag that is going to make certain to grab that pre-cut fabric. So sometimes when you stitch an applique and it's not meant for a pre-cut, it doesn't grab your fabric and it starts to pull away. Now the trim in the hoop design only has a run stitch tack down, so it is perfect to trim against that straight edge. So that's the difference in the two designs. So to get the optimal stitch out, make sure you're choosing the pre-cut versus the trim in the hoop. So you'll get both the 4x4, 5x7, you get the card for your thread list. And when you open up each of these folders, you're going to get the cut files if you want to pre-cut. I love that we're giving you this because I love pre-cutting my pieces. So you'll get the cut files, which will allow you to pre-cut your piece using a digital cutter if you'd like, or you could print this template and pre-cut with the template. So you're getting that for both the 4x4 and the 5x7. The 5x7 is going to give you the cut file for the roof line and also for the birdhouse, the main part of the house. So you've got all of these. So scroll down through here to get your design. So this cut house file for the main body and the other one for the roof line will be in there included. So I can't wait to see what you guys are going to make with these. So make sure that you make a fun project or just stitch it and show us your choice of fabric. Make sure you use the hashtag on the house and or dime sew along. So that's how we locate those designs on on social media, so that we can share your projects with everyone here watching. So we've got some other questions that are popping up because of this. So we have Shirley says, is that a freestanding design? So it is not a freestanding design. It's meant to be embroidered on another item, Shirley, but hey, get creative. There's always ways to make freestanding designs, right, Deborah?
Right. And certainly, you could and just put something else behind the hoop, to be the backside of it, right, Ashley?
Right, absolutely. And then Heidi says, can she use fabric glue to hold it down? I'm assuming she means the applique piece, and absolutely, fabric glue would work great for that. And then we've got where do we enter the free design? So where do we enter the free shipping code? So whenever you go over to DZGNS, you'll enter the free ship code at checkout to get the free shipping there for your sticky hoop or your other items. So to get your free design, you're going to go to dzgns.com. Under the designs and projects, click the free design there, and you'll get all of the links to all of our on the house designs over there, so you can get stitching. So, and then the last thing I have, Deborah, is next week Eileen is back, and she has a mystery guest. So I love a good mystery. So I'm excited to see who she's got on next week. So who is he? He's a trained artist, an IT wizard, 30 plus years in the embroidery industry. So this is going to be a fun treat. So make sure that you guys tune in next week for the mystery guest, right, Deborah?
Well, it looks like, it's not a mystery to Eileen. Sounds like she already knows who he is.
I think she does. I think she does.
And
It's a mystery to all of us.
Yeah, we'll find out next week, which will be lots of fun. I can't wait to meet him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I appreciate you sharing Facebook Live with me, Deborah. I always learn something from you, and I know all of our viewers learned a ton today too. And I appreciate all of them being here and participating in our Facebook Live between friends, right, Deborah?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I enjoyed it very much too.
Yeah, thank you. And we're going to say bye for now. Thanks, everyone.